This is absolutely the biggest game of the season. It's Liverpool United. I mean, you know, for me, when I look at the fixture list at the beginning of a season, it's Old Trafford, it's Liverpool, and it's the biggest rivalry in English football and in football for me.
I think this has started off on the wrong foot, to be honest with you. I wasn't expecting to agree with you on anything.
I know.
And I actually
Let's get it out early.
agree with you on the very first question.
Yeah.
It is because they're the two most successful sides in football in England, and that's what makes this the biggest rivalry. The intercity stuff, the people stuff, everything about it says, I need to beat you.
Yeah, but I think you've got it spot on. It's about more than the football. This, you know, I was always brought up that Liverpool is a place you don't like. I'm not going to tell you why. You don't like Liverpool. And
have you got a reason?
Not particularly. It's just, I mean, it's just, I'm from Manchester, you're a United fan, you don't like Liverpool. And so the only times you go are if you're watching the football or if you're kind of forced to go. And that's how it's always been, and I can't see that changing. And we can have, you know, they are very similar cities in lots of respects. And so it just means that we're always going to disagree on all those little marginal things. And that's kind of the thing. This is a game that will make my week or completely destroy the early part of the week. That's how it is.
So how does this game compare to Liverpool-Everton? Well, first of all, Liverpool-Everton's a massive game. Like, Everton fans will tell you, Liverpool fans don't care about it. Liverpool fans and Everton fans care about their derby because, again, they're successful sides. You know, Liverpool's one of those cities where my brother's an Everton fan. You know, he's always been a pain in the arse. He's always been that way. He's always got to be different. He made some questionable choices years ago, and I think he realises that he's made some wrong choices. But when it comes down to it, there is one game that matters more than the Liverpool-Everton game, and that is Manchester United. And I'm sure we'll come on to all of those reasons.
I think because of the success that Everton had in the 80s, you know, and particularly when Liverpool were doing well as well, I think that is probably a bigger derby than United City in lots of respects. I don't think United fans care about the City United Manchester derby as much as Liverpool and Everton fans care about their derby. But I think the difference is that as United and a City fan, if you're from Manchester, or a Liverpool and Everton fan, at the end of the day, you're still Liverpool as a city at heart, and if you're a Manc, you're a Manc at heart. And so you always kind of have to just rein it in a little bit, because once the game's over, you've got to go back to being Manchester. This is completely different, because that doesn't change. If you're a Manc, you're a Manc. And so when you play Liverpool, it's not like, right, we've got to go back now to being, you know, having a mutual love of Manchester. I will never have a mutual love of Liverpool with anybody. And so that's what makes this game completely different. And not to mention the fact that the two most successful sides, City have got, you know, nigh on zero history. And so there's never going to be that needle. And even now that they're a better and a bigger side, I think they're always fighting a battle to get close to where United have been. And listen, that might change in small spells, but in terms of complete longevity in history, it just doesn't compare to United and Liverpool at all. I mean, I think the rivalry's stayed pretty constant, actually.
Not for me.
No?
No, because the better that you've got and the more leagues that you've got, the more
I mean, if we're talking, possibly. I mean, but if we're talking really recent, I don't think, I think there's always been that underlying current. But obviously, you know, United eclipsing that number of titles was always going to change things. And actually, I think we're not, the thing, again, that gives this game so much needle in every season is the fact that Liverpool could turn that around at any point. They could have a couple of really good seasons and turn that around. And even given the serious Premier League dynasty that United have had, we're only just ahead of you in titles. And actually, I think we're in a position now where you're not going to see the same level of longevity from a manager or from a period of success as we've seen in the past. And so there's always going to be now a to and fro in. So I can't ever see it getting any more intense or lessening either. I think there's always going to be that we're always one's one step ahead of the other.
It's funny, isn't it? Because in terms of trophies and titles and stuff, that, you know, we know all about the history of Manchester United and Liverpool. But for me, I'm 34 years old. You know, I remember a time when I started watching football, Manchester United weren't really anybody. You know, they obviously had this heritage and all that type of stuff, and I'm not glossing over that. But in terms of where they were in relation to us, yous were nothing at all. And it's only through, you know, you having one of the best managers that's ever graced the game of football, and his ability to keep churning out title-winning sides, and a real mismanagement of Liverpool that. And not having that understanding of the commercial values of the Premier League, and we've slipped so far that I've just looked up to Manchester United for so many years, for the last 20 years now, going, we need to beat them. We need to get back to there. And so now it's not just like we've stopped looking over our shoulder and we've started to try and claw our way back. And that, for me, has just intensified this.
I actually saw there was a young kid. I was at Old Trafford, and there was a young kid who was there in a Liverpool shirt. It's a couple of months back, and a couple of mates were kind of laughing at him and just having light banter, to be honest. But I actually thought to myself, who's the real winner? Because right now, going forward as a young Liverpool fan, he's the one that's going to see much more parity. And I hate saying that. I really do, but there is going to be a greater level of parity. We've not got Sir Alex Ferguson. We're not going to have him. Jose Mourinho for me is the man. But Jurgen Klopp's a great coach, and I can't tell you how much that pains me, but it does, and it's true. And I think now for a Liverpool fan, I can see why, even if this is Liverpool fans' season, this is Liverpool season, even if it's not, there's not going to be that same level of, do you know what? Actually, United are just going to nail this now this season. We've lost it. You're not going to see that, I think, for a very long time. Do
you think there's a case to be made that actually having the two of us at the pinnacle of English football at the same time could drive us on and cease to make this top four, top six exist? Because I think there's a case to be made where Liverpool and Manchester United could push each other to levels that
they're the only two clubs in that top six that have got a real edge. Chelsea, Tottenham. I mean, come on, they've got a little bit of an edge.
Established 2003.
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing to it. This is a game that. Or rather, this is a tie, always, wherever it is in the season, whether you're neck and neck in the league, whether it's a game in its own right, whether it's the Europa League, a cup game, whatever. This is a rivalry that, I agree with you, could push each other on. Because if this is first and second or second and third, then there's going to be far more edge than just second and third or winning the title. And for that reason, yeah, you're probably right, actually. I can see that happening now for the next few years. I'm going to look at it in the fixture list again. But it's potentially because it's a 1 and 2, or it's a 4th and 5th, and that makes a big difference.
I simply hate Manchester United for so many reasons, and we've not got like 3 hours. So it's down to the people, it's down to the city, it's down to the history of it. I've spoken about it so many times. The fact that Manchester United, Manchester City Council, Manchester City all have a shipping canal boat on their badge to show that your city put plans in place to put dockers in Liverpool out of jobs back in the day, that had an intercity rivalry with different people, with different types of people. There was an industrial revolution in Manchester, and there was a heart of industry there, and Liverpool had the port, and you tried to take that off us. That was ours, and you took that off us. And now on the football field, you've taken the best and the mantle of the most Premier League titles or the most league titles away from us as well. So there's this hatred. It's born out of respect, first and foremost, for what? Because I would do it exactly the same way if I lived in Manchester, and we could get more jobs for my people. I totally get that. There is a level of respect there, but ultimately, all your best players over the last 20 years, I look at them and I'm envious of all of those and all the titles that they've won. So I hate Manchester United because of the success that you've had and because that I haven't had it in that time.
You've hit the nail on the head in so many ways, but again, it's just something that I'm going to throw back at you, because I think what we will agree on is that we despise every little bit of each other's city and each other's football club that we possibly could. Not because they're not strong or not because they're not great cities or football clubs. Quite the opposite. They're so similar.
Yeah.
And as with any rivalry,
except
and it's a city rivalry.
You do talk funny.
Yeah. Jesus, pot kettle black there. To be fair, we've all got accents that sound like they're hurting to talk. But everything is so similar, and with every rivalry, they've been at their peak very industrious cities. They've been hubs of music and culture. Yeah. And I don't mind saying that Liverpool is a great city if it wasn't for the fact
that you were from Manchester.
That I was from Manchester. And it's got Manchester's got everything in my mind that Liverpool has got that makes that Liverpool fans or Liverpool or Scousers will say is great about their city. I will always say, but Manchester's better in this regard. Manchester's better in this regard, and that's never going to change. And I think there is a respect there. I think as a United fan who grew up watching, Sir Alex Ferguson and the heart of the Premier League era. There was a lot of respect for Liverpool. It was a case of, we've got a job to do. And the famous line from Fergie about knocking Liverpool off their perch, that's because he recognised that, let's take advantage while we can. Because they're gonna bounce back at some point, whether that is 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So we've got to make the most of it now. And as you say, that runs so much deeper than just the football. And it's a complete city rival. You talk about all the other derbies in football. Rangers, Celtic, okay, yeah, there's a religious element, but they're still from the same city. All the London rivalries, the Milan derby, it will never have the same level of intensity because you always revert to saying, well, we're from Milan. You can't say that about Manchester and Liverpool. And there will be nothing that a Liverpool fan or a Scouse can say to me that will ever convince me otherwise. For a completely... It's a very modern memory, and it seems like a very easy one to pick out. But the Juan Mata overhead kick at Anfield and the Steven Gerrard sending off. The reason that was so big was because United had this lull, and we'd lost Fergie. Listen, we can talk about all the number of games that United played Liverpool under Sir Alex Ferguson and how good they were. Eric Cantona, Berbatov hat tricks. There are so many great moments, but United were in a pretty poor place, post Sir Alex Ferguson under David Moyes and under Louis van Gaal.
By the way.
Yeah, but it was, but that's why, because we know that you enjoyed that, and to then turn up at Anfield and for it to be in the way that it was, and for the finish from Mata in particular, and it to be Angel Di Maria who assisted that goal, who was awful for United, was absolutely awful, and yet in that particular game, on that particular day, Liverpool weren't awful either. But yet there were a couple of key moments in there that were what United Liverpool is all about. And so, yeah, there are plenty of great moments, but actually everything about Ferguson's reign in the main was a great moment. And so the thing that I take from that game is it was the shining light, I suppose, in a pretty dark, relatively speaking, United period of football. Yeah,
I think for me, again, it's a modern memory, mainly because over the last 20 years, there's not, we can't pin it down. You've got the 4-1 at Old Trafford, Vidic, Torres, that one. Yeah, absolutely brilliant memories. And it was a league season that we were doing really well in. Unfortunately, we were pipped at the post by you guys that season. But the one in 13-14 where we beat you in March, I think it was, Gerrard scores the 2 penalties, Suarez gets one, Vidic gets sent off again. That, for me, at the time, felt like we truly were overtaking Manchester United as a Premier League club. Now, it hasn't borne out that way. I think we've been, there's been a lot of parity between the two clubs since. But right then and there, the feeling around Liverpool, and this is what I go back to, it might not be the best game and the best memory because of that, but when I put myself back into that moment in time, I felt like we've brushed you aside. We've shown you, finally, that we are back. And that meant more to me than any other win since, apart from maybe the Europa League.
And that's the reason that they're so painful on the other side. Because in the same way that I was saying about the Gerrard sending off and Juan Mata, those are the moments where you know that it kills you as a Liverpool fan just as much as it enjoys. I enjoy it as a United fan because
it makes it better, doesn't it?
It does, because and listen, there's always going to be that. If I love a United result against Liverpool, a Liverpool fan's going to hate it, vice versa. But in those particular moments where you start to feel Liverpool fans feel actually there's more parity now, and then you turn up and do a job. Or, there's this change in mentality and Liverpool turn up and do a job on us at Old Trafford. Then that actually things are a little bit closer than I want them to be. And that's what makes it painful. But the reward is when we turn up and do it again.
Yeah, well, hopefully Liverpool have surpassed you now and will cement that over the next few years.
Well, we'll see.
Who's the biggest club? Are we still asking this question? Really? It's Liverpool Football Club. It's always been Liverpool Football Club because our history spans more than 20 years. Because we've won just as many major honours.
Shall we just completely disregard the fact that United were the first side in England to win the European Cup?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we've won it 5 times.
But you're
since.
talking about history and spanning of history.
5 times since.
To say that United's history spans 20 years is absolutely diabolical.
You know what?
There are lots of things that I can take.
That's a fair point.
But
that's a fair point.
I think right now, on a commercial level, and listen, I actually don't like talking too much about that, but if you're talking about size of club, in modern football it's important. On a commercial level, United are an absolute colossus. There are very few teams that rival them, nigh on, I would say none surpass them really. They're on a similar level. The Real Madrids of this world are on the same level commercially. In terms of success in recent years, I mean, it's United all day long. The success in total, I think there's 1 or 2 trophies in it over the course of...
I think it's 41 major honours each now, to be honest with
so,
you.
I mean, there's next to nothing in it. I think right now, United are by far and away the biggest club.
But I can go along with a lot of what you've said. You know, you're talking sense, that you're talking about facts. There's a Rafa thing for
Imagine,
you.
yeah.
Imagine a Scouser saying that on this show.
Yeah.
But right now, I think Liverpool have got a better football side than Manchester United.
Yeah, but
and
that's
when you're
not the
talking
same
that
answer,
you're
is
splitting hairs about 41 major honours each, it's got to be the here and now, because you don't want us Scousers to talk about history, and you've said that for years and years. So right now, we are the better side, we're the bigger side, and you know that I'm right on this one.
So the most recent club to win a trophy, so we're talking about the most recent club to win a trophy was United.
Yeah, FA Cup.
Exactly, albeit the FA Cup. At the moment, there is only 5 points in it. It could be 2 points in it come the weekend. Both have got managers that have been successful, that are big managers in world football. We're talking about possibly the greatest Premier League season in terms of quality, actually, at the very top. And there isn't a lot in it. And so you have to start...
There's 5 points in it, to be fair.
You have to start talking about fine margins. And okay, throw the 5 points. But if we're talking about size of club, then United still surpass Liverpool in almost every single regard. Right now, there's 5 points in it. That could change at weekend. I think core support, I think there's a parity. I think there's that northern football heart that a lot of northern clubs have. I think the pride for their respective city, I think is deep down. I think where United are let down are this level of glory support that we've got now. And the reason, I mean, I suppose to throw it back and criticise Liverpool for a second, some of that is based on United's success, and that's a product of United's success. But I think if you talk about cause, if you look at United away support, the real core of United support, there is no one better for me in the Premier League. I'm not saying there aren't sides that are on a parity or level playing field, but...
Everyone's away support's good, isn't it?
Of course. But I still think that United is at the very, very top of that. And I don't think anyone surpasses it. Now, I can't talk too much about, how I don't see Liverpool's away support all the time, but I can't see it being better, maybe level at best.
Yeah, I think to be fair, like again, I've not seen Manchester United's away support. I'm guessing it's very, very similar to Liverpool.
Exactly.
Like the last one we went down for League Cup against Derby, and you don't sit down, you sing the entire game. And I think most northern clubs have that, to be honest. I don't think you can rate who has the best fans on away support. I think
no, but my point is that I really want to weigh into Liverpool on this, but it's the one thing that actually I will give Liverpool a lot of credit for is I think they've got a solid fan base, but I think United have. I think the difference is, and what always makes this argument tough, is because people start pointing out, the fans that turn up to what, the day trippers, the one-off fans. United have got 75,000 seats at Old Trafford. Even if you had 40,000 or whatever Anfield is, I mean, obviously there's the expansion now, but if you put them in, you've still then got 15,000 seats for day trippers. This kind of thing always happens. And I think at core, I think United fans and Liverpool fans are on a complete level playing field. I think they're both as good as each other. That's what makes this rivalry as well so good, is because there's a bite from both sides. The one thing that always tarnishes it for United, and always will, or at least for the foreseeable future, is this kind of bolt-on cohort of fans that don't really care about the history of the club. They don't have an affiliation with Manchester. And that always hits United fans where it hurts most, actually.
See, for me, I I understand what you're saying, but to me, a Liverpool fan is a Liverpool fan. Whoever they are, wherever they're from around the world, if they buy into Liverpool Football Club like I buy into Liverpool Football Club, then they're my brethren. Do you know what I mean? Because they understand. There's a reason that these fans will have picked Liverpool, and it's not because they're glory hunters. You know what I mean? But for the most part, because we haven't had that
But
success.
actually, do you know what? I completely take your point. And actually, I agree with you. Any fan that walks into Old Trafford is a Manchester United fan. Any fan that supports the club in as better way as they can is a Manchester United fan. But I'm talking about the external view. And I think the thing that I don't like is there are always that sprinkling of support that I think we look at and we go, you're not really here for the
half and half scarves.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Liverpool fans have shown, particularly modern Liverpool fans, young Liverpool fans, can't have chosen Liverpool because they're at the very top of their game.
They pick it for an ideology.
Of course, but there are lots of United fans that do exactly the same. But because of the success over the past few years, you're going to get that cream on the top. And they're always the ones that people look at. So this is where I take it back to the first point, which is at heart and core support, wherever that individual may come from. Wherever they're from in the country, wherever they're from in the world, whatever background they've had, there is a core support of United fans who buy into what United do, and they are unwavering in their support. But because of the success, as with lots of things, success brings with it its little niggles. And the one little niggle is that extra on top.
I get that, right. But the right answer is that Liverpool fans are the best. And the reason is we can do things that no other fan base can. You know, everybody will talk about Saint Etienne all those years ago. When Liverpool fans are all pulling in the same direction, special things happen, unexplainable things happen on the football field. And we don't have enough of that now. But we've seen 2005 Istanbul. That result was because of the fans singing at half-time. And I just don't see many teams in world football, if any, that can replicate that for so often over such a huge span of years. You saw Dortmund, their manager last year, Thomas Tuchel, didn't have a clue, didn't understand what had happened. He said he'd never felt anything like it. Jurgen Klopp, former Dortmund manager, they're held up as the best fans in the world by loads of people around European football. Turns around and goes, I've never been in an atmosphere like that. And the reason that Liverpool fans are the best is because they can create those moments. But it's not because they can create the individual moments. It's because whoever takes those seats can continue to create those moments through time.
I think they can create great moments. And I wouldn't disagree with that. But I still think there are one or two moments that Liverpool fans are still almost dining out on. And I think that the support now, okay, the Dortmund game was a big one, and the result in the end,
as well,
and the result in the end went in Liverpool's favour, obviously. And it was a great second half performance. But I think you have to also credit the Dortmund fans a huge amount there as well. So I think there are lots of great moments for either club, but I think at heart and at core, I think there's still that northern football ethos that, listen, I fight for my city and I fight for my club, and wherever they go and whatever support they need at any given time, we will give them.
Gerrard or Scholes? Seriously, it's 2017.
Correct.
And we're still asking this question.
And I can't believe you're about to say Steven Gerrard.
I am actually about to say Steven Gerrard.
That shocks me.
Because he was the better player. Because, here you go, this is the disadvantage of going first, isn't it? I feel like I need to do some kind of 8 Mile M&M thing here. Do you know what I mean? When I'm going to give you all your points. Paul Scholes has won loads of Premier League titles. Paul Scholes has been involved in great Manchester United sides. He was a complete and brilliant footballer. He really, really was. Absolutely superb. But if you replaced, and this is what it comes down to for me, if you replace Steven Gerrard with Paul Scholes in Liverpool's side, we wouldn't win those trophies that Steven Gerrard won. Whereas I believe, and I truly believe, that if you put Steven Gerrard into the Manchester United sides that he's played in, you would win just as many, if not more.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about complete hypotheticals, which I suppose we have to do. But actually, again, Steven Gerrard was a great footballer. There's no denying that. But he was a product, or rather his status was in part a product of the fact that Liverpool were never reaching the heights that Manchester United were. And yes, he dragged Liverpool through a number of different games, but Paul Scholes never had the opportunity to do that, really, because actually United as a unit and as a side for so many years were doing that as a collective. And the linchpin, so often, particularly when United sides were so much poorer, we're talking about the likes of Anderson playing and Tom Cleverley, some of the poorest United sides we've seen in Ferguson's era. Paul Scholes was still a linchpin in that side, winning titles. He came back with a freshness about him that I've never seen a player who's nearly retired or retiring to come back with. And he's got a quality about him that I think is so instinctive and so natural. And I think in terms of heart, I think Gerrard's got a hell of a lot to offer, quite possibly more than Paul Scholes. But if we're talking about talent and we're talking about how much they can offer in terms of footballing ability.
Well, this is it though. I know what you're saying. The football and ability one's really interesting because Steven Gerrard has more football and ability than Paul Scholes. Let me finish though. Let me finish. Paul Scholes, I believe, was a better attacking midfielder than Steven Gerrard. But Steven Gerrard was a better player off the striker. He was a better player at right wing. He was a better player at right back. He was a better central midfielder. And I don't think that you can honestly, hand on heart, tell me that Paul Scholes was better in all of those positions.
No, but you see, then we're talking
because
about...
Steven Gerrard was a complete footballer and he did it in a side that was no good.
Then what we're talking
about, do it
about
for the team.
We're then
and
talking
he sacrificed himself for the team on so many occasions that is what being a complete footballer, a complete man, and just a better all-round person.
No, but you see, we can then start talking about jack of all trades against, a master. And Paul Scholes was a master of his position.
He was.
An absolute master of his position. And so, in many ways, people make this comparison all the time, obviously. United fans make it, Liverpool fans make it, the wider footballing world makes this. But in many ways, I'm with you, that they're not completely comparable because they play very different roles, despite the fact that they've played central midfield. But again, Paul Scholes never needed to play in any of those roles. I'm not saying that he would have been as capable.
Because he was in a better side, though.
Of course. And this is why this argument will always be tough on either side of the fence. Because yes, Steven Gerrard was more influential in his side. But that is so much based on the fact that actually there weren't as many other players in that side.
I just think, though, that, was Paul Scholes ever your player of the season? Actually officially given player of the season? Was he ever UEFA Club Player of the Season? Was he ever PFA Players of the Season? Was he ever PFA Young Player of the Season? Was he ever Fans Player of the Season? He wasn't. He was never the best player in that United side or thought of at the time. I think you can look back and say that he is now, but I don't think at the time you can genuinely say that he was even the best player in the side.
No, but there are so many players in football who are put on pedestals, and Steven Gerrard's rightly put on a pedestal as a Liverpool player and as an England player. But there are so many players that you put on pedestals because of the character they have, the emotion they show, the amount of effort they put in for the badge. And listen, Paul Scholes was Manchester United through and through, but he didn't have that same outward passion, I think, that you would see from Steven Gerrard. And so I think you're right that actually, Paul Scholes is lauded more after his career than he was at the time. But I think that tells you more about personality than it does quality of football. And the fact that you can retrospectively look back and look how good Paul Scholes was, and some of the comparisons that players in world football have made about the fact they would have loved to have played with him is their most complete or best midfielder they've ever seen play football. And listen, Steven Gerrard's had some of the same comments said about him.
Managers and players.
But the fact that you can retrospectively look back and then recognise how good Paul Scholes is, I think says more about the fact that one was a very outwardly passionate footballer. The other was someone who went about his business, did his work, and did it in a very complete, as far as I'm concerned, way.
Okay. Well, I think, you know what? To be fair, I've kind of enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's horrible to say that, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah.
But it's actually been all right. And we've disagreed on everything I expected us to disagree on. But the one thing we can agree on is that we're always going to disagree when it comes to Manchester and Liverpool.